Hey guys, it's Charles here. Thanks for coming back to our educational series on how to invest in real estate in Toronto. Last week, we began off talking about the strategy for investment. We began off by diving deep of single family rentals, what it is, what are the pros, what are the cons, and we ended off by concluding that single family homes are basically a very stable, less management, and generally the tenants are very good, and you'll have less turnovers, and your appreciation will be great if you buy at the right location, good house. So it's very recommended for those who are starting out. This week, we're going to talk about rent to own. So for those who are not familiar with rent to own, basically we're adding on to the single family rental strategy, where rent to own, basically you're still buying a nice single family home in a nice location where you have the good fundamentals, but this time you're adding up a notch where you're going to have agreement where the lease agreement gives the tenant the option to buy out the house at a predetermined duration. So it has two components. It has the regular Ontario standard lease agreement, which you will also need for your single family, but adding on to that, you have the option to purchase agreement. So how does that work? Basically, the tenant is saying that, you know what, I can't buy the house now, but I would love to buy this house in, let's say, 3 years from now. So therefore, we're gonna make an agreement to buy this house 3 years later at a predetermined price. And in order for me to have that option to buy out, I will give you an upfront option payment, kind of like a deposit, and I will pay extra monthly rent, which we call it the monthly credit, so that when it's time for the tenant to buy out, they will have some forced, savings, which will go towards their down payment. So there's an upfront payment, and there is the monthly added credit to the rent. It's great for people who has good income, but for some reason they have low credit score, right? If you have some sort of roadblocks that prevent you from qualifying the mortgage with the bank or credit union, that's sort of the people who will be attracted to this kind of program. Maybe you went through a divorce that caused bad debt. Maybe you're new to the country and haven't established credit. Maybe you're business owners who haven't really been reporting the full income to the CRA, or maybe you're individual who have claimed bankruptcies years ago, but since improved your situation drastically, but you're just working toward building your credit, right? There's many reasons why one who would not be able to qualify right now to buy a home, but does have the income and is working towards building that credit, building that the checklist that the banks will require for you to get a mortgage, right? At the end of the term, right, it's gonna be a private sale, so you don't have to go through a realtor or MLS. You just buy straight from the landlord, and for the landlord, you don't have to pay any realtor cost. So that's kind of a benefit for an investor. We have more pros. So the biggest thing about this strategy is that it has to be a win-win, and win-win for the tenant as well as the landlord, right? It cannot be a win-lose kind of scenario. So it's going to be a win-win because this program will have an upfront option payment, which we talked about earlier. So this can be used as down payment to acquire the next property much sooner if you're an investor, right? So if in typical case, you'll receive 50,000 for the option payment. If the next property you're going to buy is, 400,000 to 500,000, that could be, half of your down payment right away. right? You don't have to wait for. And this option payment, as well as the monthly credit, is non-refundable. So the tenants who are signing up to this deal knows that, and it's explained before they sign the agreement that the option payment and the monthly credit is non-refundable if they choose not to exercise the option to buy the property, right? Next good will be cash flow due to increased rent, and that's because of the monthly credit that we spoke about, right? This is a percentage of rent added as rent credit. It's kind of like forced saving for the tenant when they exercise their option to buy. Next will be we're helping tenants get into home ownership, right? Typically gives them 3 years to qualify for mortgage, so you have time to work with a mortgage broker or somebody who can take a look at your current situation and come up with a plan for you to qualify 3 years down the road for the mortgage of a house, and you get to live in it right now, right? The biggest thing is, as an investor, we never want to set up the tenant for a failure. So before we get them to sign this lease agreement to purchase a property, we make sure we send them off to a broker, have a look at their situation to see if this is something that is realistic, right? So if the broker comes back to you saying, this person, we don't think they're gonna come out in a position that they can purchase a property in 3 years, then you just don't go through the program, because you're just asking for trouble, right? And typically it's a win-win, because the tenant feels like they own the property, right? Because they pay the option payment already, so they have skin in the game. They know that in 3 years down the road, as long as they follow the plan, they will be able to be in a position to purchase a property. So the tenants will take care of a property like they already own it, but in legality, the investor still owns the title and the tenant is just really renting, right? So so to take care of the property, which is good. One of the cons would be it's predetermined buyout price. So you might do your best to forecast what the future price will be in 3 years, but a lot of times, if we are going through the kind of market appreciation that we're experiencing right now, investors might be leaving money on the table, right? Meaning you are forced to sell the property at a lower price than what you can get if you were to list on the market, right? Another con would be, for the tenant, life gets in their way, right? Tenant might have to not have a choice and walk away without buying the house. So that's already, it's a little bit sour experience for both the investor as well as the tenant, right? Especially if you've been cheering them for the 3 years to work together to hopefully get the property so that they can buy, but things happen, and a lot of times you can't control that, so tenants might have to walk away, right? In that case, the investor gets to keep the option payment, which was paid up front, as well as the rental credit that was built up every month for the 3 years. So you don't lose any money as an investor, but again, we want to make it a win-win scenario, right? So if the tenant doesn't end up exercising their buying option, then really the program has failed, right? So my takeaway for this strategy, it's a great thing about being an investor, offering a rent to own, is that you're making money right away, right? And you're also doing something that improves the life of an entire family for the tenant, right? You're helping them achieve their dream of ownership when there's no way they would have accomplished this dream without the program, right? So for the investor, a big incentive to start a rent to own is that the strategy can be a huge catalyst to get started in your investment journey, accumulate funds that the investor can use toward a down payment for their next property, without really waiting for the natural equity appreciation, right? So yeah, but if you're in a long term, and if you have the money, you can always switch it back to a regular single family. I think by now the majority of the wealth is still made in holding the property. So if you can hold on to it as long as possible, especially if it's a single family, that's where you will make the money, right? So yeah, that's it. If you guys like the content, please go ahead to download your free copy of deal analysis sheet. This is the spreadsheet I use for myself when I'm dealing with analyzing each deals. And if you like this content, please like and subscribe. Thanks guys. Bye for now.